Hello. Welcome to Tween Talk Live. What would you do with your extra time if you didn't have to plan your tweens day? What would you do with your time if you didn't have to plan your tweens day? In this session, I'm going to share how I took my girls from dependent to independent learning. Now, a little bit of a spoiler, it's not overnight. Sorry. But if you start in your tweens, it makes the teens so much easier. So much. My girls are in their late teens now, so I can say this system that I'm going to show you today works. I'm Marina Gabor, founder of the Tween Talk, Empowering Moms to Raise Independent Kids community and the upcoming Life Skills Club. Super excited about this. We start talking about it on Friday. I'll be in the group on Friday. Club opens up September 8th with the first meeting, September 12th. So excited to support you in this new way, and I'm going to let you know more about it at the end. But in this session, I'm going to share with you 3 critical skills your tween needs to be an independent learner. I'll show you how that worked with my daughters and what that journey was. And I'll give you some strategies so you can start implementing right away, today, right now, whenever it is that you're starting school. And the best part is you don't actually have to do it on your own. Like I said, at the end, I'm going to share a little bit about the Life Skills Club. It will accelerate your tweens' path to independent learning. So if you are here and you are watching live, please type #live in the chat. Thank you for showing up live. That is awesome. And if you're watching the replay, glad that you're here. Type replay in the chat and I can say hi later on. And why I ask you to do this is when you engage in the chat, it helps other people see the video as well, and they'll get some help and inspiration. So thank you for that. Now, also in the chat, let me know, when does your school year start? Have you started already? Whether you're going to public school, whether your kids are public school, whether you're homeschooling, these same principles will apply. I'll be speaking directly to homeschooling. That is the lens that I'm using to look through dealing with these skills. However, if your kid is going to public school, these same skills are required and they will get you a result as well. So, how did it all start? How did we get from not independent or dependent on me to not being dependent on me and being independent learners? Well, I'm going to go back where we all started. We just lost everything. There was a flood. It was devastating. We literally lost everything, lost our house, all our stuff, the whole works. But we had planned to homeschool, just not quite that early. So the flood had moved up this timeline. I wasn't ready. My girls were 6, 7, and 8. We jumped in. We just jumped in. And I thought, okay, well, I'll have school at home. So I tried to recreate school at home. And it was a starting point, but I knew that I wanted more. So even at that age, when the girls were that young, I started thinking about how can they take charge of their learning. I knew that if we started young, then we could build up some skills. So eventually, I wouldn't have to be over their shoulder every day, all of the time, because that wasn't going to work for me. I was working from home, sometimes working out, and I was like, this is not going to work if I have to be over their shoulder every second. I also wanted them to love learning. I wanted them to be lifelong learners, and I didn't want learning to be drudgery. And I knew that part of that would be getting them to be independent learners so they could take charge, take control of their learning and run with the things that they were really interested in and be able to do the things even if they weren't. They would have to develop character, not just academic skills. So academic skills and character. But even knowing all of these things, it was still several years before we settled into a groove. So depending where you are in your journey, how dependent or independent your tween is, whether you're homeschooling or not homeschooling, it takes a while to get in the groove. I'm not going to lie to you. This is not Instagram. This is not the Instagram version of the story where you set everything up and it all looks nice. This is the behind the scenes messy truth of it. But you can get to the other side. So fast forward a few years, and to be fair, we were starting from scratch after the flood, so that definitely played into our learning timeline. But you know what? You've got stuff in your life too. Everybody's got stuff. There's always going to be stuff that's like disrupting our best plans and ideas. So with that in mind, jumping forward a few years, my youngest turned 8, and life started to change. I definitely noticed a significant change when my youngest turned 8. So now I had 3 girls, 8, 9, 10, all in the beginning of these tween years. And I realized my parenting was going to have to change. Not just my parenting, but my homeschooling style too. They were ready to take more responsibility for their learning, which meant I had to let go of some of my ideals. I know, ugly truth, hard to hear. All those perfect Pinterest homeschool rooms, the pristine home, the perfectly planned outings with the pictures to prove that I had done something. I was a good mom. I needed to let go. And it was more a little bit of a letting go than just, okay. But the good news is when I moved from this caregiving over their shoulder all the time, monitoring, telling them what to do every second of the day, when I moved to more of a coaching model, which you need to do in the tween years, I started taking the long view. Then I could come at things a little more open-handed. I started exploring, who are my girls? Who are they as people? How do they work best? What matters most to each of them? What did I want it to look like by the time they launched? What skills, what characteristics did they need when they were ready to launch into adulthood? So I started thinking about all of these things. And this doesn't happen necessarily when you're running around all busy. Like, you have to take some time to contemplate, like, where do we want to end up? What is the end goal? And even if you think, I want my kid to go to college, great. Why? What is going to be the outcome of that? So think beyond that. Think to the next step and go, okay, so how can I prepare them for life? And obviously, you're not going to be able to teach them everything. So we want these core foundational life skills drilled in deep so they can develop a love of learning, so they become independent learners, so that no matter what life throws at them, they are able to take it and run with it. So that's what I want to share with you today, how you can come at your tween's journey to independence with this coaching mindset and with open hands. So give me a yes or a thumbs up in the chat if you are ready to help your tween step into who they were created to be by coaching them to independence. Let me know in the chat. So I didn't know it at the time, but I was using what I now call the empowerment matrix, which is what we'll be using in the Life Skills Club. You've got this interconnection of organization, critical thinking, communication. So those 3 things intertwined, interconnected. These were the 3 core skills that were critical in helping my daughters become independent learners. They guided my coaching, they helped me set priorities, and helped me be really strategic in their learning journey. So, first thing, if I wanted my girls to work independently, they needed to be able to read for understanding. That's what this effective information gathering and evaluation, that's what that all means. They need to be able to read, and not just read for fun. They needed to be able to read for understanding. Because if I wanted them to be an independent learner, part of that is they need to be able to gather information, to take in information and do something. That's the learning bit. Now, videos worked for some things to augment what they were learning, but they really needed to be able to read to understand what they were reading enough to apply it. Reading instructions. So if you want to leave your kid alone with a workbook and they can't read the instructions, or they can read the instructions, like they can read the words, but the words don't sink in, make sense, they don't know what to do with those words, they can't work independently. It's impossible. So kids read at different levels. They start reading at different times. Your kid is at a certain place in their reading, so you're going to start with where they're at. Now, something that I think really helped my girls that might be a solution for you or help you augment or speed up their reading comprehension is they listen to audiobooks. So they used to play Lego for hours, building all sorts of things, and they would have audiobooks going in the background, the same ones over and over, like multiple times they'd listen to them, and they would hear how words were put together. They weren't limited by their speaking vocabulary. They could listen to books much higher than their reading level because the book was read. It was read fluently. It was read with expression. And they got to the end of the sentence and they could figure out the meaning because there was a short time between when the sentence started and the sentence ended. And they didn't have to get stuck on unfamiliar words. They could pull the context, pull the meaning of the word from the context because they heard the sentence quickly. So for perspective here, reading speed for comprehension is like 200 to 400 words a minute. So that might be an indication to you, get your child to read for you. How fast are they reading? If they're reading less than 200 words a minute, it could be that the comprehension is a reading speed issue because by the time they get to the end of the sentence, they don't remember what it was said at the beginning of the sentence, and they can't hold that in their working memory long enough to comprehend what's going on. So they might just need to read more, pick up their reading speed. And then you'll notice a marked improvement in their comprehension and in their ability to work independently. So now the second thing, so once they were reading reasonably well, and that's going to keep improving over time, the more you do it, the better you get. Also with instructions and so on, you read these instructions, you figure out how that works. The next time you see that same kind of instruction, you go, oh, I remember what to do. And then they improve over time. So the second thing that leads to is this critical thinking and problem solving. So part of the brain development journey is they move from concrete thinking, whereas they understand things, they can see, they can touch, like the physical senses. Okay, they get that. Whatever's right in front of them makes sense. As they start getting older, they start having the ability to do more abstract thinking. So like, what if this happened? And what if that happened? They need that skill to be independent learners. How, if I do this, then this will happen. That's that critical thinking path. Why does this matter for independent learning? So if your tween can't imagine future consequences, if you're saying, if you don't do this, then this is going to happen, but they're still very much concrete thinkers, then even when you state the consequence, it doesn't really mean anything because they can't imagine it. But as they continue to develop, that abstract thinking skill also will develop that part of their brain, and they'll be able to go, oh, so if I don't do the math page, I can't do this, and that's why. So how can you improve this? How can you take wherever they're at in their progression of, from concrete to abstract, and how can you make the most of that? Simple strategy for you. Get them to write stories. This seems frivolous. You're like, don't they need to write essays? Isn't that all about critical thinking? Yes, but even an essay has story. Stories force you to come up with solutions to problems. The nice thing about stories is you can imagine the whole thing, which stretches that abstract thinking, pushes the bounds of that. So you have a character and they're in a situation and they have to solve this problem. How are they going to do it? Critical thinking, problem solving. We need to figure out, well, what are they going to be able to do? Do they have the tools they need to solve the problem? If not, how will they get them? Then they think they solve the problem gets worse. Why is it worse? Then they have to think about something else. What else can I try to solve that problem? How else can that character solve that problem? The beauty is there's no life consequence. So they can think things through, try, experiment. The main character, maybe it has a problem that your tween thinks, I wonder what would happen. And they might imagine themselves doing something. They put it on their character. Then they start thinking it through and going, oh, maybe I don't want to do that. I can start seeing the outcome. So storytelling and story writing, it expands this critical thinking and problem solving skill set. And this is why in the Life Skills Club, I just have to say it, I've included a bonus 7-sentence story workshop every single month. Partly, let's be honest, I love writing 7-sentence stories. They're so fun. The pressure is low because you're just going through, like, you only need 7 sentences. It can be super fun. Keep it short, and you continually get to say, oh, well, I wonder what would happen. Oh, I wonder what would happen. You make it ridiculous, you start the next one. Oh, I wonder what would happen. So you can do 7-sentence stories with your tween. You can do them written. You can talk them through. But we're expanding that critical thinking and problem-solving skill set. Finally, we're going to get to planning. So finally, they're going to get to the point where they can be self-directed in their goal setting and planning. Now, that is a large skill for independent learning that they're going to gradually learn over time. But I can say that it is worth the effort. 110% worth the effort. So way back, remember, after the flood and I started homeschooling my girls, right away I was like, okay, we need planners. So I went to Walmart and I got the planners. And the next year I went to Walmart and got the planners. And every year we added more things. So that first year I was like, okay, so on this date, this is what you write down. This is what you do. So they would write that thing down on that date. And it felt like, okay, so I'm doing all of this work. But I was training them how to use that planner. But it was tedious. I'm not going to lie. I wish I could say they learned it in a minute. They didn't. But I hate it when I go to something and the presenter is like, oh, it's just like magic. And then I go at home and I'm trying it at home and I'm like, why aren't my kids picking this up? I must be doing something wrong. And I feel like I failed. I don't want that for you. So I do have a simple win. That is the first step. So even if your tween hates planning, even if you've tried planners, they have no interest in it, but you know, because you're looking at the long view and you go, I want my kid to be organized. I want them to be able to manage their life so that in the future, they have a job. They're going to show up on time. They're going to get their assignments done. All of that, whatever it is, you've got that long view. So get one of those large fridge calendars, and you're going to use it for outings, appointments, events, things that have to happen. You're not going to use it for a to-do list. That's a totally different thing. You're not using it for your tween's assignments, none of that stuff. This is just like the big events, kind of like, when they say put the big rocks in and then the smaller rocks and the pebbles, finally the sand and the water, that kind of thing. These are your big rocks. I will say use pencil, because even if you're like, yes, this is a big rock, we're committed to this, we're going to do this, and then it's canceled. And then you have to scribble it out, and then it looks really messy, and maybe you're okay with that, and that's fine. But I just now have a pencil only rule. So here's the thing. You've got your calendar, and you are going to pass the baton to your tween, pass that responsibility to write events that impact them on the calendar. Maybe it's only one thing. Maybe they go play soccer every week. Then it's their job to write soccer on the calendar every week. What time? Soccer, 5 o'clock. Next week, soccer, 5 o'clock. They're writing it on there. They're practicing, and they're making that connection that it's on the big calendar. It's something that I do. I see it as I walk by. I see how it interacts with what the family is doing. Now, they're not consciously thinking about all of those things, but those are the connections that are happening. Maybe they have youth group. Write it on the calendar. All of that stuff. The more of their things that they're writing on the calendar, the more invested they are. It forces them to see, oh, these are all the things that are going on. They become more aware. Then take it a step further. Still a simple step. At dinner, take the calendar off the fridge, look and see, well, what's coming up for the next day? And talk about it. Oh, you have soccer tomorrow. Oh, yeah, See, it's on the calendar. In fact, I have a thing with my girls, and I say, if it's not on the calendar, it doesn't exist, because we have to put, like, where do I need to drive? I need that on the calendar. That's why it's on there. So when you talk about it at dinner, it reinforces the importance. If you do all of this calendar stuff, you never reference it, you never look at it, what's the point? They're not going to be invested. They're not going to do it. So, great, wonderful. Now, how do you know what your tween needs to do? Or now you know what your tween needs to do to get started on this path to independent learning. But how do you get them to buy in? How do you get them? What do you do? You want them to be reading. You want them to be writing. You want them to be putting stuff on the calendar, because those are going to augment these, or expedite, speed up the skills that they need for independent learning. So start with, like, how to get them to take charge of their learning. So you want them to be in charge of things, because they're going to be caring for the things that they're in charge of. So if they're going to soccer and they're writing soccer on the calendar, and then they're also in charge for making sure their uniform is ready, making sure they've got their shoes, making sure they've got their water bottle, whatever they need for that thing, they care about it. They're going to be more invested, right? So think about, how can you get them to care about their learning? How can they care about science? Well, we need to know, like, what's in it for them. And you might think, I'm the parent, I tell my kid to do the thing, they should just do it because I said so, which works in childhood when you're in that child rearing stage. Now we've moved to the tween years where we're coaching. doesn't work so well anymore. They want to know why. What's the upside? So a couple of ways you can get them to buy in. First of all, incorporate interests in their learning. So if you're talking about science and you're doing science, how can you include things that they like? And this is where the more you know your kid and the more you know what they're about, the more you can highlight those things that they like. Even if it's only a small aspect of it, it'll help get buy-in. If you're homeschooling, you can provide a choice of assignments. Perhaps you can let them choose the topic. Perhaps as you're choosing curriculum, you're like, okay, should we try this one or this one? And you don't care which one they use. You want the one where they're going to actually do it, where there's like buy-in from them. And once they choose it, then they need to commit to it. Okay, yes, I chose that. I'm committed. And they need to know that and take ownership of that. And thirdly, we want to develop curiosity. So have them doing some side projects, some hobbies, developing some interests. And again, once they are developing some interests, then we can tie those back to whatever learning objectives we have got going for them. And then they're going to be more invested in improving their reading, which is this gathering of information, that skill. They're going to be more invested in writing those fun stories. They're going to be critical thinking, developing those problem-solving skills, and they're going to be more invested in this self-directed goal setting by noting things on the family calendar. So there you have it. We can get your tween invested. We have some ways to develop those skills for independent learning, and they're things you can start right now. They don't take a bunch of extra time, energy, resources. They just require you to be intentional. Now, at the beginning, I mentioned the Life Skills Club. In fact, I'm so excited about it. I think I mentioned it a couple of times. It's opening September 8th. A club for tweens to learn and to practice these core life skills: communication, organization, critical thinking. And then they're going to take what they apply and do it at home. It's about implementing. It's not just like, oh, this is a fun social club, but it's also, it is that, but it is also, let's actually do the skills at home. And you, as the mom, you're going to get support in an exclusive group. You'll get specific actionable ideas for how to support them as they're learning these micro skills, as they're practicing, as they're implementing what they learned in the club. The benefit is you're supporting what they're learning, but you don't have to teach about, okay, think about like, how do I teach that skill? And you're going to be there to encourage them, give them the push they need to move forward. And I'm going to be there giving them the push they need to move forward and saying, hey, is it time to talk to your mom about this? Hey, have you written the things on the calendar yet? You don't have to be the one who's always pushing. Honestly, at that age, sometimes they need to hear things from somebody else. And that's why there's the Life Skills Club. Now, on Friday, I'm going to be going live in the group to tell you more about how you can use the Life Skills Club to support your tween's journey to independent learning this year. And I know that's kind of crazy, but during that launch period, starting on Friday, ending September 8th, founding members can get in for $3 a month. $3 Canadian per month. That's it. I know, super crazy, but I really want to help tweens develop these skills, building families through building these core skills. I can't wait to share more with you on Friday. Thank you for joining me here today, and we will see you in the next Tween Talk.